Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Afasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And today I wanted to talk about that question that we all ask each other first thing in the morning, and half the time we lie about the answer. And that question is, how are you? And I think the automatic response is, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, but how often do we really mean it? Um, the truth is, like, most of the time, how are you, to me, is a greeting. And it's not actually an inquiry into my well-being. It feels like I don't think, and I'm probably wrong. I don't know. This is just my opinion about it and how I feel. I feel like people don't really want to know the truth. So we give them what they expect, a simple, unremarkable answer. Um, Especially because when we say, how you doing? How are you? It's in passing. I mean, we are literally walking past each other. So that inquiry, how are you? How do you really know when somebody wants to know how you are? And how do you know when to tell the truth? Right? If the truth is not, I am fine. What if every time somebody asked you, how are you? You told them exactly how you are, and you took the time to say, well, like, I woke up this morning. I usually have a headache when I wake up, and go into that. Or what if you said, I feel terrible. I feel terrible this morning. Um, how often do we give ourselves permission to be honest, especially if we're struggling? And so personally, physically, I feel bad when I wake up in the morning every day. Some days it's not just physically bad. Sometimes there are emotional, mental, and spiritual challenges as well. But I've trained myself to get up and start my day because I know that with movement and trust in my program, my recovery program, that I will start to feel better. Sometimes I'll feel better as soon as I open the doors to my dog's crates and they come out stretching and wiggling their little tails and stuff. Sometimes I feel better right away. Sometimes I need to walk the dogs outside, get some coffee. And once I have like blood flowing, I feel like my head starts to feel better. So um, that doesn't mean that I'm not fine, but it doesn't feel like it. So if I happen to log on to my AA meeting before I even get out of bed and somebody says, how are you doing? I probably am not going to tell them the truth. I would probably say I'm doing okay. Um, and I'm not doing okay. I'm not doing okay for the first 5 minutes of every day. So the reason why this came up is this morning when I logged on to my AA meeting, like, I didn't feel okay. I felt really unusually crappy. My head just didn't feel good. And it was, if it doesn't go away right away, by the time I get downstairs and get the dogs outside, it starts to affect me, I think, emotionally. I start to feel a little depressed because, well, it's frustrating, to wake up like that every morning. So when I logged on and I usually keep myself unmuted and I'll chit chat with people. We call it the meeting before the meeting. And people are, getting their day started, talking about what their day looks like. And a lot of times, there's some people who come in and they're really enthusiastic. They've already had a couple cups of coffee, and so their blood is pumping and they're raring to go. And then there's other people that are like, it's Monday, something like that. And this morning it seemed like there was several people who felt like me. Maybe they didn't have a headache like me or felt emotionally frustrated like me, but there was one person who I think was sick, and there was another person who's just dealing with a lot of stuff. Life is very lifey for them right now. And then there was another one, same thing. Life has been very lifey, and they're just dealing with it's exhausting to try to keep going every day when it seems like you're in this rut almost where things aren't improving in your life no matter how much energy you put forth to them. And a lot of that happens in AA, especially in early recovery, when folks are staying sober, trying to work the steps, and trying to fix things that have happened in their lives, whether it's their relationship, whether it is uh, issues with parenting, if anything happened in that arena, family, friends, whatever may have been disturbed from drinking. They're in this mode where they're trying to fix it, and it can be exhausting in every way. So AA seems to be the only place that I ever have gone where people answer honestly every morning. If somebody says, "How are you doing?" People are usually saying, the truth, because if you're going to tell the truth about how you're doing, an AA meeting is exactly where you need to be to do it. But as I said, sometimes I won't even tell the truth in there. I think it's because I just feel bad so often that I feel like people are tired of hearing about it. And that's probably not true. But I get tired of saying it. So when I wake up and I'm feeling bad, whether it's the chronic like ache I have in my head, or the weight of emotional burden, something going on in my life, I do trust in my program and my higher power. And I have that trust because I have felt bad before and did things anyway, like I talk about in the podcast, and things have improved. So I have proof that it works. If I trust in my program and I trust in my higher power and I pray, I go to meetings, I talk to my sponsor, I lean on other people, then I know that things will be better. We'll get better. I will feel better. It's just going to happen, period. So this trust is what gets me out of bed every day, even when everything in me wants to stay under the covers. I literally throw the covers off of me even though I want them on. And my reward for that is I stretch. So before I even get out of bed, I stretch because I like it. It feels good. So I don't just wake up and stand up. I will lay down and like stretch my legs and stretch my arms and my neck and stuff like that because it feels good. So I do try to reward myself. I don't know if that's strange or not, but reward myself for throwing the covers off. And then when I actually get up, I get to go get the dogs. And that is always rewarding for me to open their crates. And they are always so happy to see me, you know? So I know from experience that if I move, I will start to feel better. And something I heard this morning that really resonated with me, and I think I've heard it before, but I don't hear it enough. And it was that to not push harder, but resist less instead. And so this morning somebody shared that, and it's exactly what I have been learning in recovery, in both recovery and sobriety and in stroke recovery. It's not about forcing myself to be okay. Not about forcing myself to be happy and joyful when I don't feel like it. Um, or do more than what I'm capable of doing, not popping out of bed, you know? It's really about not resisting that the day is here and moving, stepping into the day and not necessarily feeling like I have to jump into the day. Accepting that, yeah, I feel like shit right now, you know, and allowing myself acknowledging that I feel like shit, giving it a name. I don't say that enough anymore, you know. What am I feeling like? Am I frustrated? Am I sad? Am I angry? Am I angry that I have to go through this every day? And allow myself to feel that. And as I was talking about yesterday or the day before, maybe sit in it for a few minutes and think about, this is how I feel. Why do I feel this way? And remain in that physical location and think through those feelings. Allow myself to cry if I need to cry, or get frustrated if I am frustrated. And then when it's time, when my time box is up, then move, you know, then move physically away from wherever I am and start moving towards something new, moving towards a new emotion. Um, not, not feeling like I have to push, but just moving towards it, if that makes sense, without resistance. So one place that we hear "How are you?" a lot is at work. I remember walking down the hallway or sitting in my office with the door open, and people are walking by and they're like, "Hey, how are you?" And before they even are done with saying you, they're like, they're gone, you know? And it's funny actually to think about today, because I get to go to my sobriety meetings every morning and hear "How are you now?" And as I was mentioning earlier, these people are open and raw and truthful about their struggles, and it's a safe place where we can say, "I feel terrible." And I know I won't be judged. I know that somebody who asked me that question, "How are you?" is listening to my answer. One thing that bugs me so bad, and I'm sure it bugs everybody, is when somebody says, "How are you?" And then when you're responding, that person who asked that question is looking off into something else. Either they're looking across the room at somebody else, or they'll even start a conversation with somebody else. That is so frustrating to me. In my program, I know for certain that whether it's in a meeting, before a meeting, after a meeting, or it's just giving a call to somebody in my network, I know that the person who's asking me, how are you, is listening to my answer. And the feeling is mutual. I ask how they are and I listen to the response because it's life or death how we are. When we're walking through the hallways at work, it doesn't feel like when I say, how are you, I'm gonna hear a life or death answer. But in sobriety, if I ask how somebody is, it's a life or death answer. It is, because if they are feeling something that could lead them to a drink, it's life or death. And I need to listen and I need to try to, we work together as a community in honesty, so that we know that we're not alone in our struggles, and that keeps us sober. In the outside world, I sometimes feel like nobody really cares to hear the truth. And I'm so grateful to be a part of a program where it's okay to be honest and to admit that things aren't great, and that nobody's going to think, I'm so tired of hearing her complain, and the honesty, it doesn't make me weak, it makes me real. I got, how many of you, okay, I'm just going to say this. How many of you come home from work and your spouse, your kids, your family, whoever, a friend says, how was your day? And you either say, same thing, you either start complaining for half an hour or you just say it was fine because you don't want to think about it anymore. It's almost the same situation. Well, I once had somebody say to me, all you ever do is complain about work. As somebody was saying, how was your day? And I'm responding in honesty, and I didn't have that support to listen to me. And I assure you that I was not just complaining all the time. Maybe I was complaining all the time, but don't ask me how my day was then, right? Don't ask me how my day was if you don't want to hear the honest answer, because that's what relationships are for. We're here to help each other. So being real with somebody is what helps me be able to live joyfully. What I know today, which is, let's see, 25 years later after that experience, is I don't have to have those people in my life that don't want to hear the answer, that don't want to support me. It's my choice who I get to have in my life. And I want to have people that are going to make me feel supported. And that's what I have now. So what do we do with this? How do we navigate these moments when how are you feels like a loaded question? And I think it starts with being honest with ourselves. We don't have to spill our guts to everyone who asks, how are you? When you're not feeling on top of the world. But we do need to take that time to acknowledge our own truth, if only to ourselves. And I think when somebody, it could be a good exercise for us that when somebody is asking us, how are you? Sure, you can say, I'm fine, but actually take the time to think about, how am I? I don't do that. If somebody asks me, how are you? I'm never unless I'm in an AA meeting, I'm never actually processing how I am. I'm not thinking it through about how I am. I'm just trying to come up with an answer so the person will leave me alone, or so we can get on to something more interesting instead of how I am. Because really in my life lately, how are you I don't have a lot of good stuff to say. I think I'm working on it, and I've got, if things are looking up, we'll just say that, with having all of my insurance stuff figured out now, Social Security figured out now. I'm reaching close to the end, hopefully, of this long journey of visiting different specialists to have conversations about what's going on in my brain. And so I think that, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. It's, I get a little like hesitant to actually say how I am. But when somebody asks me, but I need to take that time to check in with myself. And living in recovery has taught me that importance of checking in with myself. Um, it's okay to not feel okay, but it's not okay to not admit it to myself. It doesn't matter what I tell other people in passing, but it's not okay if I don't admit to myself that I'm not okay. If that makes sense. That does make sense. Makes total sense. So, and then what matters is that we keep moving forward no matter how okay we are, okay or not okay we are. And keep trusting in the process and keep leaning on our program for recovery, no matter what it is you're recovering from, what it is you're dealing with in life. You don't have to have had a stroke. You don't have to be an alcoholic to be able to benefit from the program that I work, the stuff that I talk about in this podcast. It's everyday stuff. It's stuff I could have used when I was in my 20s, when I was a teenager, learning how to live without being my own worst enemy, and learning how to create my own concept of my higher power. That has been key for me in navigating my own thoughts, really. So the next time somebody asks you, how are you? Take a moment to check in with yourself and be honest with yourself about where you are. If you choose to keep that to yourself, fine. But make sure that you are taking that time to acknowledge what do you need? What do you need to feel okay, to feel better? And again, it's not about trying harder, not about pushing yourself, but about resisting less and letting go of the need to be wonderful, trusting that you're gonna find your way through. No matter how you feel right now, it's not going to last forever. Just keep walking forward, keep taking a step forward. So thank you for joining me today on the Recovery Daily podcast. I will talk to you tomorrow.